Thank you so very much. That's very, very encouraging and helpful. In line with the depression and traumatic people, then we also have people suffering from blood pressure, those who try their own best not to commit suicide. So, how do we handle people with blood pressure? Is there even a cure for a blood pressure?
Okay, there's basically two different kind of blood pressure problems. There's the primary hypertension, primary blood pressure, and that's the high kind of blood pressure problems where there's no identifiable physical cause, and that's about 85% of the cases of high blood pressure. And the other type is secondary hypertension, and that is due to it's secondary or due to some kind of physical problem. And sometimes it could be a constriction of the artery that feeds the kidneys, and the kidneys help regulate your blood pressure based on how much fluid you retain or get rid of. And so if there's a constriction of that artery, the kidney wrongly reads that the pressure is low downstream. You may have a tumor on your adrenal glands. That's a gland above your kidneys, and that could be secreting abnormal amounts of hormone that controls blood pressure. Stress hormone in particular. And then there's can be problems with your thyroid, and so thyroid controls your metabolism. So if you have an overactive thyroid, your metabolism is higher and your blood pressure, your heart rate goes higher, and of course that would cause your blood pressure to increase as well. That's about 15% of the cases. So what about the other 85%, the primary hypertension? I think that's kind of what we're talking about. In America, a big problem with that is weight problems. If you have, I think the fact on that is for every pound that you're overweight, you have an extra mile of blood vessels and capillaries. That's the very smallest blood vessels to pump blood to supply that extra pound if you had to string it along in one long line. So you'd imagine if you're 20, 40, 50 pounds overweight, that's a lot of extra blood vessels to pump blood through. Of course, you're going to need high blood pressure to do that. So getting rid of extra weight, stress, being in a high stress job, basically, your body prepares you to fight or flight. That's the typical stress response. So if you're in a stressful situation, your blood pressure can be high. And on a spiritual level, hidden sin can cause high blood pressure. And that's part of that stress component. So it's important to kind of sort out, just because you have high blood pressure, medically speaking, as a doctor, I don't just assume that there's no cause. We have to check out the thyroid. We have to check out the kidneys. We have to check out the hormones that cause that may be related to a tumor on top of the kidney. If that's all negative, then we do treat the blood pressure. But I think where we come up short in the medical community is we address the weight. For stress, oftentimes we'll put people on anxiety medicine or depression medicine. But where we fall short of is dealing with things like hidden sin. Well, what's going on in your life? Asking questions like, what's going on with your life? For children, we ask, how are you doing in school? What are your grades? Do you have friends? Who can you talk to? Is someone touching you in an appropriate way? Are they touching you in your private areas? Those are things that we can do as clinicians to kind of help sort that out, and that opens the door for any number of further questions.
So does that mean I did not hear your comment on blood pressure be cured at all?
Okay, as far as again, the artery that leads to the kidneys, that can be taken care of surgically or with a stent. If there's an adrenal tumor, that would need to be removed to cure it. Treating thyroid problems, that would be curative. Losing weight, that would be curative. Stress, addressing the stress, that would be helpful, and addressing the hidden sin. So a lot of these can be cured. Sometimes all of those things are negative, and meaning that there's no problem, and so you end up treating it. So that's the difference between cure means that it's gone forever and you don't need to do anything else with it, aside from maybe just following up every once in a while, and being treatable, which means addressing, taking in some cases medicine to treat that blood pressure. So it depends on what the underlying cause is.
Okay, thank you so very much. That is very, very helpful. So going to the next question, is self-medication dangerous in any way?
I guess it depends on self-medication. When someone says self-medicating something, I see two ends of a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have people self-medicating with things that are not meant as medicine. And here I'm thinking of treating something like depression or trauma or anxiety with alcohol or drugs. Those are clearly not meant to be medicine. And the other extreme would be a total reliance on the professionals, and just focusing on them and nothing else. So again, the first of the spectrum is self-medicating with things that aren't meant to be medicine. But then you have lesser degrees where you have an over-dependence and an emphasis on something like herbal remedies, home remedies, in an effort to extend our lives as much as possible. And this is basically a total reliance on yourself. Again, the other end of the spectrum would be a total reliance on the professionals. 2 Chronicles 16:12 says, King Asa of Judah is criticized for relying on his own physicians, and it says, yet in his disease, he's not to the Lord, but to the physicians. So in both cases, there's a danger in the attempt to remove God from the healing process. On the total reliance of self end of the spectrum, there's a danger of addiction, overdose, and death. Self-reliance end of the spectrum, or a total reliance on others end of the spectrum, there's a spiritual danger of narcissism. And narcissism is we don't need God because we're so smart and we can figure it out. There's also a spiritual danger of nihilism. We can heal ourselves, but for what purpose? What purpose is it to be physically healthy if we have purpose in life? So in both cases, this takes us away from an eternal perspective and gives us a false hope of a temporal pleasure and joy, but it's a fleeting thing. It's not a lasting thing. And again, John 14:6 says, I'm the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So everything that we do, every moment that we have in life, even the healing process, needs to be through Jesus in order for us to have an eternal relationship with God. So balance. God did give us things like herbs and some medicines. So treating yourself with those things in a way that they were meant to be used, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with using physicians to help us heal. It's the extremes that we have to be careful about.
Oh, thank you so very much. That's so educational and so helpful.